Hello, everyone, and welcome to Heads Up, the weekly podcast of the National Headache Foundation. I'm Dr. Lindsay Weitzel, founder of Migraine Nation and chronic daily migraine survivor. Sometimes we like to talk about things we do that help us cope with our migraine disease and with our pain. And I'm really curious how many people we have out there who watch us, who use music or singing, or who are musicians, and who it helps them in coping with their migraine disorder. So today I have a very special guest, and I'm hugely excited. I am here with professional singer Kelly Leigh. Hello, Kelly. How are you?
Hi, Lindsay. How are you today?
I am great. So Kelly is a country music singer. She uses music to help her cope with her chronic migraine. And she learned this coping skill from a very famous relative. And we're going to get into that shortly. And I'm very excited to tell everyone the stories. It's just so much fun. So we will get more into that. And hello, Kelly. Thank you for chatting with us today.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm excited about this, and I'm happy to work with the National Headache Foundation.
All right. So, Kelly, you grew up in Nashville, Tennessee. How old were you when you started singing?
I started singing when I was around 5 years old.
Okay. That's awesome. For someone like me who can't sing at all, that's very impressive. What inspired you to sing?
I'm from a musical family, and music was around me from the time I was born, and it was just natural to me.
Well, tell us. Go ahead and tell us about your musical family.
My uncle is entertainer, country music singer Johnny Cash. My mom is his younger sister, and I grew up around music, like I said, from the day I was born. It was just normal to me to have all that music around me, and it just became a part of who I was.
That's really awesome. So did you travel with them? Were you around Johnny a lot? Were you guys close?
Yes, absolutely. From the time I was little, my mom started to work for him in 1960 doing his fan mail. So anytime she could, once I was old enough to travel, she took me with her when she'd go out to different places on the road with him.
That's awesome. So I believe you've also written a book about your mother and her life working with Johnny. What is the name of the book?
It is called Johnny Cash's Gatekeeper, the Reba Cash Hancock story.
Oh,
yeah.
And what is the gist of it?
It is the gist. They grew up 2 years apart. They were very close as children, but once they reached adulthood and Johnny went off to become a country music sensation, he reached back and he grabbed his little sister because he couldn't really find anyone he trusted to care for his day-to-day business. So she kind of followed him from California to Nashville and worked for him for about 35 years as basically his gatekeeper.
That's a great story. So this is part of the story that I just think is a really beautiful thing. It sort of brings tears to my eyes. So Johnny once told you that he used singing as a means to cope with a chronic pain condition he had. And I don't know if many people even know he had a severe chronic pain condition. So can you tell us that story?
Absolutely. He had a jawbone that got broken accidentally through a dental implant he was having done, and it caused him pain, and he had various surgeries over the course of about 5 years, and there really wasn't much they could do. So he was in constant pain, and he told me one day, he said, the only time that I'm not in severe pain is when I'm on stage and I'm singing. He said, there's something about it. It just takes me away and it eases the pain.
Okay.
Yeah.
So at what age did you develop migraine?
I developed migraines early. I'm going to say probably 13, 14 years old.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do migraines run in your family?
They do. My mother and father both had chronic migraines. So I'm thinking maybe in my case, it could be genetic.
Okay.
Yeah.
And can you tell us how migraine has affected your life?
In the last 10 years specifically, it has really affected my life because, of course, we don't really know when we're going to get a migraine. And we try to find these triggers. But for me, I can't really trace the actual triggers. So it's always a surprise when it happens. And usually I'm at work. I told you a little story about working and having to leave work, which is awful, to have to do that. But it also happens on an airplane,
Yeah.
In a car with other people, in public, very inopportune times. And it's been the last 10 years, it's been more progressive and more difficult to deal with.
Right. So you have chronic migraines. So you get numerous migraines a month.
Yes.
So it affects your life a lot. And you've clearly had it for years, and since you were a child or a teenager at least. So was there a particular point in your life when you noticed that singing helped you cope with your migraines?
I probably noticed that about 3 years ago.
Okay.
There was one day that I was just in so much pain, and I was walking around the house and I started singing, and it took the focus off my migraine. And I think for me, it comforted me and it helped me, it eased me. And I thought, wow, it was like, I had forgotten what Johnny had told me. It clicked.
That's awesome. So I think a lot of us, there's not a lot of data out there on music therapy and migraine. There's a small amount of data on music therapy in general, like it perhaps decreases blood pressure or anxiety. But there's not a lot on pain or migraine. So can you tell us, for some of us, it might sound a little crazy because some of us have such sensitive ears when we have migraine. We have phonophobia. We don't like noise. We don't even like the sound of our own voice sometimes. So we would love to hear what it is about it that makes you feel better or makes you feel good. If you could explain it a little.
Absolutely. I think it's the vibration.
Mm-hmm.
For me, also, I do have trouble with my ears. Sometimes I can't stand any noise.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the vibration, the music comforts me. It's a distraction. It takes my mind off the migraine. So I'm focusing more on the song and the singing and the voice. And for me, growing up in that musical family, it was just such a relief when I started to sing. So I've continued to do that, and I realize there's not a lot of research, but I think maybe there should be. It could be something that helps others.
Yeah. Does music help your mind too? Does it make you happier? Does it keep you, because one of the most important things when you're in chronic pain is to keep your mind in a good space.
Absolutely. It does. It transports me to another place. When I'm singing, I'm happy, and it doesn't matter if it's a happy or sad song. It's just the act of doing the music. The music to me is comforting. It reminds me of home and my family, and there's nothing I'd rather do than to sing.
Mm-hmm. So you still obviously get migraine. This is still a problem for you. Are you currently performing professionally, singing?
Yes, I have been. In the past couple of years, I've been doing music festivals in Nashville. I'm also on Nashville Cowboy Church quite a bit. My aunt and uncle, Joanne Cash and Harry Yates, they run the Cowboy Church there in Nashville. So I do that anytime I'm in town, and I was just there last Sunday.
So you told me a story. You didn't actually start singing professionally until just a few years ago.
Right.
And I asked you why, and it was I like the story. Tell us why you waited.
I waited until Johnny and June and my mother had passed away, because I was around them, very powerful personalities, for my entire life.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of cast a big shadow. And I just was always in the background, and I didn't feel confident enough or good enough to step forward until after they were gone, and I kind of stepped away from that whole world. So
there's a lot of wonderful stories you have to tell. They're great to hear, and it's great to hear someone who has chronic migraine, who's doing such awesome things, writing a book and singing. And we just love to hear stories like this. And also using such an awesome coping skill. These are great stories. They're inspirational. We love to have people like you on the podcast. So is there anything else you'd like to tell us about your life with migraine?
My life with migraine, I have adapted. I do everything I can that I think will help me not to have a migraine. Right now, I'm not taking any medication. I'm doing a keto lifestyle, the ketogenic, and I think it has helped some. I think, if I avoid certain foods, I'm better. They could be triggers. I try not to get under a lot of stress. Right now, I'm doing things from home, so I'm not out in a work environment, which has been better for me. So I've learned to cope and kind of adapt. But as I said before, sometimes they come out of nowhere. So we just, we learn all the little signs to know, hey, I'm about to have a migraine. And we just kind of adapt our lives. And, it's a struggle, but I'm going to remain positive and say, hey, there could be a cure one day. So.
Yeah. Well, Kelly, thank you so much for coming on. That was
Welcome.
awesome stories. And I think that even like your story is awesome. And just even hearing that your uncle was living that awesome life of his, having chronic pain that whole time, is also very inspirational for all of us. So thank you so much for giving us your time.
You're welcome.
And, you have an awesome day.
You as well.
This is Kelly Leigh and Lindsay Weitzel signing off today from this episode of Heads Up.